All right, we're live. So welcome back to Dapp University. So today we got a lot to cover. A lot happened yesterday since our last live stream. If you're just joining for the first time, I'm Gregory. On the channel, I turn you into a blockchain master. We do these live streams here Monday through Friday, about 9:30 a.m. Central Time. And we're getting started a little bit late today. But make sure you subscribe to the channel and smash that like button down below. Turn on notifications to learn about these whenever they come out. So today we're talking about Ethereum. Is it undervalued relative to other cryptocurrencies? We're going to kind of explore that question. We're going to look at the markets, look at all the news that's been happening since yesterday about Ethereum, about other cryptocurrencies as well. Okay, so again, like I said, I'm Gregory on this channel, turning into a blockchain master. If that's what you're interested in, smash that like button, subscribe to the channel. If you want to know how to become a blockchain master step by step, start to finish, then head on over to dappuniversity.com/bootcamp to get started today. All right, so we got people jumping on the stream here. So we got Catherine, Darcy, Lucas, Mark, Ansel, Lucky Dust, Benjamin, Vignesh, Atrox, Rodrigo. Awesome, very cool. Somebody says ETH is overvalued. All right, so we're gonna get into that. All right, we're gonna explore that question. So let's start off with this. Okay, so we'll start off with sort of the assumptions here in the first place. This gets really confusing. People talk about how do you value cryptocurrencies in the first place. Some think the entire cryptocurrency market's completely overvalued. That's all just hype. It's all just BS, et cetera, et cetera. So I totally get there's a big range of perspectives here. So let's try to answer the question like, is ETH undervalued relative to other cryptocurrencies on the market right now? Okay, so let's just pull up CoinGecko and take a look. We can kind of take a look at the prices and do all this kind of as we go. So you see the top market cap cryptocurrencies here. Of course, we got Bitcoin, Ethereum, Cardano, Binance Coin, Tether, Polkadot, XRP, Uniswap, Litecoin, Chainlink in the top 10. Okay, so like I said, I want to go back and start from sort of like the first principles, right? You kind of build a set of assumptions and try to go from there. So it's hard to understand how to value cryptocurrencies in the first place, right? At the end of the day, the demand, it's supply and demand economics. They don't work like stocks. They don't work like anything else really. So that gets a lot of people confused. Is like, how do you assign value to something like this in the first place? So a lot of crypto market runs on narratives. A lot of it also is kind of bolstered by fundamentals. My kind of view is basically narratives are typically what drives the hype, and then fundamentals are really what give it legs. Okay, so if you're talking about is something undervalued, is it overvalued, I think you have to look at what the narrative cycles are, where the narrative cycles could be headed in the future, and what are the fundamentals that could potentially give those narratives actual legs. Because at the end of the day, you can have something that runs on a narrative for only so long until people realize that the narrative is not actually true and that it actually tanks. So let's take a look at some of that. So if we're talking about from a valuation perspective, let's look at where ETH just was recently. All right, so ETH recently was, it crossed over 2K. Okay, so this was in the last 30 days. It crossed 2K. We're currently at 1,793. You could say that ETH was overvalued at that point and it corrected. Maybe the entire market was overvalued at that point, it corrected. Again, I'm not a big trader, not a big TA guy. I'm trying to look at the big picture here. I'm not going to draw like moving averages on the charts. I'm not going to try to look at a bunch of chart patterns and divine like where it's headed next. But going to try to, like I said, look at some of the big picture. So there's a lot of narratives floating around out there about ETH being slow, being too expensive. A lot of these narratives are created by the quote unquote ETH killers to claim how they're going to do it better. It's convenient, you know what I mean? I think at some point you have to kind of look at ETH and say like, why do so many people want to hate on it so much? Because they stand something to gain. It's basic 101 persuasion. You see it in politics all the time, which is basically how do you make yourself look good? You make the other guy look bad. It's contrast bias. It's textbook. Okay, so you have to ask yourself, why do so many people want to use that strategy? Because it has a lot going for it. So if we're talking about narratives versus fundamentals, I'm making a video coming out Friday talking about how there's a lot of narratives that could flip in ETH's favor pretty soon, probably. So we're going to see layer 2 scaling solutions come on the scene pretty soon. I mean, they're already here, It's just a matter of time before some of the newer ones that show a lot of promise come out and start gaining wider adoption. I'm still going by my prediction that I think in 2021 we're going to see wide adoption of layer 2 scaling solutions. So that will help with the fee problem quite a bit. Also the throughput. Of course, we got a bunch of bullish stuff coming up on the pipeline for the Ethereum improvement proposals, all that kind of stuff. So, and there's a lot of things in there that could be bullish narratives for ETH. So it could be fast. ETH being a good store of value could be a big narrative shift for ETH in terms of EIP 1559 coming out, ETH being deflationary, all that kind of stuff. I think another narrative that I mentioned this a little bit. This will come out in the video too, which is there's a lot of pushback about Bitcoin not being very green because it uses so much energy. But if Ethereum is your proof of stake, that's definitely something that could work in ETH's favor in that regard, where a narrative could really shift from ETH. So those are some of the narratives. Now let's look at the actual fundamentals themselves, because I see a lot of people like, hating on ETH, but it's like, where's the majority of activity that people use blockchain for, where they're speculating on this kind of stuff with decentralized exchanges? Buying NFTs, I mean, where is that happening, right? It's happening on top of ETH. So in terms of actual user activity, not just like buying cryptocurrency and sitting around and speculating it, but actually using the applications, I mean, the majority of that activity is happening on top of ETH. Of course, some of it's happening on Binance Smart Chain. That's kind of that's like a new development because of the gas fees and all that kind of stuff. We talked about that on this channel, the difference in decentralization values on ETH versus something like that. So that's another thing to think about when you're trying to like answer this question is ETH undervalued? Well, what was the price before? At the end of the day, this is all relative to other cryptocurrencies. If the entire cryptocurrency market is overvalued, then everything in the market probably is overvalued, right? If the entire market's undervalued, then same logic. But I'm talking about relative to everything else that's out there. It's not just running on narratives. There's lots of fundamentals behind it as well. There's lots of ways that the narratives could flip in ETH's favor in the near future. As always, it's not financial advice. I'm not even necessarily giving you the answer whether it's undervalued or overvalued. I'm just trying to like talk about some things that you can use to make your own decision based on something like this. It's like almost like Socratic questioning. So it's like, how does this happen? How does this happen? And then ultimately, it's up for you to decide. So I want to talk about that's the other thing with all of the activity that goes on ETH that we talk about a lot on this channel. Like, there wouldn't be enough stuff to talk about if we were looking at something else. I mean, I do these live streams Monday through Friday. I talk about a lot of the cryptocurrency ecosystem. I mean, one of the biggest reasons I talk about Ethereum in the first place is because I am a blockchain developer who focuses on Ethereum. That's been my specialty for a long time, since 2017. So, I mean, that's kind of where I'm coming from with a lot of this. But yeah, there's a lot to talk about. And, people who are new and they look in on the technology and they say, well, all this technology is just like busted, slow, clunky. It's kind of silly. Like, you got these people who are just buying these cats on this random website and like, it's just kind of janky. But don't forget about this stuff. Like, this was a website. This is GeoCities, right? So this is all the goofy stuff that people were doing back in the day. Like, look, I'm going to make my website with a hit counter on it and like all these pixelated brick backgrounds. I'm gonna make some blue bricks, right? It's like some Technicolor animations. Don't forget, that's what websites were, okay? Of course, there were a lot more than that pretty soon after. But, early adoption can look kind of silly. And I think we're seeing a lot of that similar type thing happen in ETH right now. So let's look at some other crazy news. All right. Let's look at this came out yesterday. Actually, right after our live stream, I was like, how does this always happen whenever we how do we always get these big announcements like during the middle of a live stream? So let's see here. So the first thing here is Morgan Stanley becomes the first big U.S. bank to offer its wealthy clients access to Bitcoin funds. All right, this is a source from CNBC. Okay, so yeah, this is big. We're talking about institutional adoption of cryptocurrencies. being a major catalyst for this bull run, okay, or this big cryptocurrency market that we're seeing right now. Simply because institutions possess a large amount of money. They also possess a lot of clout. So whenever a big institution comes into play, that buys, that basically buys Bitcoin, they can buy a lot all at once, right? Like billions of dollars potentially. And if they're a well-known company, then basically, a lot of people will model them. They'll also take it seriously. Like, so when Tesla bought $1.5 billion of Bitcoin for its balance sheet, that was big because it's Tesla. People know Tesla. They take Tesla very seriously. Excuse me. Sorry, everybody. Take Tesla very seriously. And yeah, it's a lot of money, so it moves the needle for the market cap a lot more than individuals could, okay? So the other thing is, we're starting to see the same type of thing happen for ETH, okay, on a much smaller scale. I think it will continue. Somebody said malware. Yeah, totally. Sorry, everybody. I think it will continue for ETH. So we just saw one yesterday. Somebody who previously bought ETH for their balance sheet and had more, okay? So Hong Kong listed company. I keep pronouncing this wrong, so if somebody can give me a better pronunciation, I believe it's Meitu. So if I'm saying that incorrectly, my apologies, everybody. Buys another 50 million of Ethereum and Bitcoin. So they actually bought more ETH this time again, I believe, than Bitcoin. I have to go look at the actual numbers here. I'm gonna look through the report. Yeah, you have to fact check me on that to get 100% accuracy here. But we saw them make a buy earlier, and they just made another one. So this is big. They're not gonna be the last people that we see start putting ETH on their balance sheet. I think we're going to see earlier adoption of people doing it who are more plugged into the crypto space because they're more familiar with ETH, what it is, what it does, what its utility is, the fact that you can stake it, that you can do all this other stuff with it. Yeah, they definitely won't be the last. So let's see here. So more and more, we talked yesterday sort of about like the question whether this time will be different. Okay. Are we in a boom and bust cycle for cryptocurrencies like we were in 2017? Are we on a much longer, are we in like a new phase of things where, we don't have these boom and bust cycles quite as badly as we did in 2017? There's lots of people who disagree on that. One thing, whichever you decide, or whichever you think is true, there is an interesting perspective here talking about being on the brink of Bitcoin mass adoption. Okay. So it could be true. You know what I mean? If we do, it depends on what you mean. It really depends on what we mean by mass adoption. We have to define it. It's hard to define because, does mass adoption look like, your grandmother holding Bitcoin? I don't necessarily think so, because it's not the same thing as like using a computer or the World Wide Web or something like that. Is mass adoption like X% of big institutions holding Bitcoin? I don't know. Does mass adoption mean Bitcoin being worth $1 million? I don't know. There could be some validity to this that we're on the cusp of it. Maybe we are in the cycle phase of things. Maybe we do need another big cycle for that adoption to really permeate to where, everyone can agree we've reached mass adoption. I don't think mass adoption looks like paying for everything in Bitcoin. I don't think the narrative supports Bitcoin as a payment currency right now. I don't think that it's good for that from a utility perspective either. I mean, there'll be people who think that like once Bitcoin's market cap gets big enough that, if I say if Bitcoin's market cap gets big enough, that the price could be less volatile and it could basically like become a functional currency because the market cap's so big that the volatility is basically reduced. You wouldn't view it as a growth asset anymore. I don't know. Maybe. I'll believe it when I see it. So we're seeing more and more on the NFT front too. So we talk about this a lot. So I'm gonna take this off. It's getting hot. Talk about this a lot where ETH is like, or NFTs are starting to become more of a pop culture type thing, where of course they're in a bubble, but that doesn't mean they can't be much bigger for longer. Okay, that could be a big deal long term. So basically, like people liken NFTs to ICOs being sort of on a hype train, all that kind of stuff. I think that's true. That doesn't mean they can't be something much bigger. And one of the reasons they can be much bigger is because they have appeal to people who aren't just interested in cryptocurrency, not just interested in finance. Talk about that a lot. But they're starting to become part of popular culture or pop culture, okay? So we saw something else come out yesterday about the NFL in the United States. So if you're not in the US, I mean, you probably already know this, but NFL's National Football League, it's football in the US, which is that brown ball that looks like this, that sometimes people kick with their feet, sometimes they hold and run with. But yeah, it's kind of confusing. Like football, I think of like soccer. That's what we say in the U.S. for what most people call football. Probably a better name. Anyways, NFL execs have been in active discussions with potential partners to develop a digital collectible as NFT strategy. And teams have been told not to make deals on their own without checking with the league. But anyways, this is big. So if we have NFL NFTs, that's a 6-letter acronym there, then yeah, that's just another way that NFTs are starting to reach, public or what I would say pop culture. We're also seeing big brands like Charmin. Somebody says, "Is this the top?" So this is the Charmin NFT, NFTP, world's first non-fungible toilet paper. So is this the top? It might be the top. I don't know. Here's the thing. I mean, I think NFTs could have a bubble independent of the cryptocurrency markets where the NFT bubble goes up like crazy and it pops, and it wouldn't necessarily like send the entire cryptocurrency market, crashing down or anything like that, because I don't think fundamentally it's what's driving the cryptocurrency bull run right now. Something if like DeFi collapsed totally, maybe, but yeah, we could see the NFT bubble completely pop and get decimated without necessarily other crypto markets absolutely tanking. Not financial advice, of course, at the end of the day, but that's just my opinion. So another thing I want to talk about on the Ethereum front is some improvements coming up that could really change how Ethereum is used. So I saw this come out. I actually tweeted on my Twitter, but I saw some more commentary on it here, where we have some updates to Ethereum wallets that could really change the dynamics of how the network works. So one example here is potentially as soon as July, Ethereum could become more usable. We could have gas subsidized transactions for all accounts and contracts and more. Okay, they're going to talk about it on Friday's All Core Devs call, so you can watch these calls. They're public, they're open. That's one of the reasons Ethereum is so cool, is because it is decentralized. It's an open community. So like, if you want to keep up with what's happening on ETH2, you can just go to the phone calls and listen to them. You know what I mean? If you want to hear what's happening, if you want to think, if you're trying to ask the question, like, is ETH2 actually going to ship? Is it going to get here? Do people actually know what they're doing? You can go to the calls and listen, okay? So another thing is, so we can go through some of this. Like, what are some of these potential updates? So Ethereum wallets getting significant upgrades soon with the proposed change. Eternally owned accounts, that's what EOA stands for, will immediately be able to send batch transactions. Okay, that's big. You could send multiple transactions kind of all in one go. Expiring transactions, so you could say a transaction that happens maybe after X amount of time. On order transactions and more. Okay. So they talk about how they've been doing this for a new EIP, which stands for Ethereum Improvement Proposal. For opcos, these are really low-level instructions for the Ethereum virtual machine. You don't have to understand what all these things do. But we're talking about signing messages off-chain that basically allow them to do this. So I don't want to get into the crazy technical details, but this could be a big UX upgrade for Ethereum if this ends up working out and gets passed. Okay, so let's see. We got some questions here in the chat. Somebody says billionaires can't afford gas. So the DeFi stagnated due to high gas fees. Yeah, maybe. You might be right. Somebody says join the ETH dev Discord. Somebody says blockchain-based chat application will create prison state. So we have talked about this a little bit on the streams, where basically people are worried. Some people are worried that essentially like blockchain will just make this round trip to a dystopian future that just makes it easier to track. Like people will, like public regulators will support blockchain technology and adapt it simply because it makes it easier to track what people do, which I think that is in the cards and we have to be careful about that. Somebody says, with layer 2 scaling solutions around the corner, how do you think that will affect the Ethereum price? Will there be a decline in volume on the main chain? How does that work? So it's a good question. I mean, I don't have any formal price predictions about, what's going to happen with Ethereum price, today, tomorrow, next week, or after layer 2 becomes more widely adopted. To answer, let me reread your question. Will there be a decline in volume on the main chain? I think there will be some decline in volume on the main chain because there'll be incentive to use layer 2 solutions. Now, the layer 2, here's something to understand, is a lot of these layer 2 solutions, they derive the security from the main chain. And like for rollups, for example, the result of those transactions gets batched up and actually put on the main chain. So we're still going to see activity on the main Ethereum blockchain. It's just that whenever you like do a transaction, you're not directly like paying your ETH gas fees to the main chain. That's how that works. Somebody says ETH will decrease in value because we will sell the news. Also, Tron will do it again. I don't know. Maybe. I doubt it. Somebody says Ethereum is doomed. So I don't have a formal ETH price prediction 1 year from now, or for any time period. So somebody says, if I say that I work with ETH on a daily basis, what do I do? That's a good question. So I've worked with Ethereum since 2017. I started out in blockchain as a freelancer doing freelance projects. Doing that over time, also building my own projects on Ethereum. I am currently not doing as much freelance work as I used to. Transitioned into focusing on other things, focusing way more on Dapp University. Of course, we're doing these live streams Monday through Friday. We're doing these live classes and all that kind of stuff. I do still work on my own projects for Ethereum, and I'm an Ethereum user, so that's what I end up doing on a daily basis. Grayscale now has ETH Trust. Yes, totally do. So do I invest in ETH? Of course I do. Yeah, I've held ETH for a long time. So somebody says, can countries build voting solutions on ETH so that no one can say? Sorry, my chat keeps scrolling while I'm trying to read. So let me just start the question over. Can countries build voting solutions on ETH so that no one can say votes were counterfeit, et cetera, et cetera? So there's some problems with that. Part of it's the transparency. You mean, assuming that you were able, there's several problems. One is identity. Can you verify that an individual Ethereum account is actually tied to a specific person, okay, to verify that that identity is who cast the vote, you, of course, would have to pay to vote, which would be a problem. You'd have to verify the identity is actually registered to vote. There's lots of problems there. Then the last one is, assuming you could check all those boxes, like you'd still be able to publicly see like who voted for who. So, I mean, maybe, but there seem like a lot of problems with that. I mean, of course, there are potential long-term solutions with like zero knowledge proofs, other privacy solutions on top of Ethereum. But if you're talking about just like, implementing out of the box in a very straightforward way, I think we had a long way to go before something like that is ready to go. Somebody says, will some of these sidechain solutions go the way of the dodo after ETH 2.0, especially the ones, hold on a second, chat keeps scrolling while I'm trying to read, especially the ones which will drop gas fees but is years out. Oh, sorry. I read 2 comments wrong. So let me read it again. Will some of these sidechain solutions go the way of the dodo after ETH 2.0, especially the ones trying to solve the current problems? That's a good question. I mean, I think smaller projects in general right now are less sure bets, especially newer ones, because it's just higher risk. Like they're brand new projects. I'm not going to call anybody out like in general, or sorry, specifically. I'm talking about like in general, like new projects trying to solve something that Ethereum and other layer 2s can potentially solve sooner. It's just risky. You know what I mean? Will some of the projects go the way of the dodo? Of course they will. I mean, that's just true for crypto projects in general. There's a lot of stuff that just won't make it. I mean, it just won't get adopted. It's just true. You know what I mean? Not everything is going to be. There's a hierarchy. You know what I mean? Like how hierarchies work is some things just don't become important. You know what I mean? And when stuff doesn't become important for a long enough time, then it eventually just becomes kind of irrelevant. So somebody else said, let me get this straight. So Ethereum 2.0 is supposed to implement proof of stake and methods like sharding for mining purposes, which will drop gas fees, but is years out. So then the same person says level 2 architecture is supposed to provide solutions for Ethereum gas prices until 2.0. If this is the case, why isn't a lot of pressure and bets on projects like Polygon? So, I mean, we are starting to already see activity in that direction. So you're correct. You're in your assumption that L2 is basically going to help with this problem. It's not going to solve it completely. It's going to help with this problem. But we'll still see layer 2 solutions even in Ethereum 2.0 world. Okay. Whenever Ethereum 2.0 gets here, we'll probably still see roll up technology. I mean, Vitalik has even talked about that. So yeah, layer 2 in the short term, layer 2 plus ETH2 in the long term. Somebody says level 1 ETH or level 1 programmer NFT. Awesome. Somebody says, what are my thoughts on IPFS as a potential next base layer for the web or as a possible replacement for HTTP? So I'd say, I mean, the most obvious usage for IPFS, in my opinion, is just for file storage. So like if you're on a website and you look at the pictures on the website, those pictures could be stored in IPFS. Of course, we do that for NFTs now. The images for a lot of NFTs are stored in IPFS. You can also store basically the entire website on IPFS. So like, when you look at YouTube that you're watching right now, if you're not on a mobile device, if you're actually watching it on a computer, like on a desktop computer, it's a website. It's just a bunch of HTML and CSS code and pictures and all that kind of stuff. You could bundle all that and put it on IPFS. You know what I mean? Somebody says I should create a token and allow us to invest in Dapp University. Yeah, I don't want to go to jail. Somebody says, can countries actually ban crypto completely? I mean, it depends on what you mean. Like, somebody, a country can say you can't use crypto. I mean, they only really ban it when they seize it from their citizens' hands. You know what I mean? Like, if you're in the system, I'm not telling you to do this, by the way. Like, I'm not advocating that you like completely go off grid and like evade your country's laws. It's not what I mean. I'm talking about like the technical problem of actually enforcing a ban would be challenging. I mean, it can do a lot. Like, you can enforce a ban and it would go a long way, but it wouldn't like completely eradicate usage. Just like anything else that's illegal, there's always black markets. There's always like underground stuff. All right, everybody. That's all I got for today. As always, smash that like button down below. Sorry for the technical problems and the, the issues there. As always, subscribe to the channel, turn on notifications. You get notified by these live streams Monday through Friday, 9:30 a.m.-ish Central Time. If you're as fast at this technology as I am, you want to get your hands dirty, get started today. How can you do that? You go to my YouTube homepage. You can find any of my free courses there, like Udemy courses, but they're totally free. If you like those videos, you want to take the next step, or hey, maybe you want to take a master shortcut entirely, actually become a blockchain master step-by-step over at dappuniversity.com/bootcamp. All right, that's all. So that's all I got for today. And until next time, thanks for watching Dapp.